Evening, everyone. We're going to give it a couple minutes here. We got quite a group, so just let folks trickle in. But thank you so much for being here on this Monday evening. And if we want to get things started a little bit, I'd love to hear in the chat where you are in the world. I'm currently in Brooklyn, and I was just thinking about what a beautiful evening it is currently in Brooklyn and how beautiful it's been in New York lately recently. But share in the chat where you're joining us from. Let's get a sense of the geographic spread of this amazing group. We'll get started in just a minute. Oh my goodness, David Lowy, hello. Great to see you.
Oops. I wonder if everyone can't chat everyone else. I'm seeing a lot of things, but let me try
I
and
don't
enable
see
that.
anything.
Can everyone see the chat? Nope, we're getting shaken heads. Okay, that's interesting.
I will work on that. Well, I love seeing everyone's messages. I feel like I'm in great communication.
Should we just comment on how good the chat is just between the three of us?
Yes.
Let everyone feel left out. All right, just another minute. Okay, I'm gonna pop this out, get the screen sharing going. East side of Cleveland, all right, Midwest.
I think everyone try sending again. I think everyone can now read.
Yes. Coming in for me.
Great, great, great. Now we
Amazing.
can. David, always the stage manager, taking care of business.
I love technology.
Okay, it is now 7:32, so now is as good a time as any to kick things off. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, but a few elements of housekeeping. My name is Sam Byron. I'm the Executive Director of Admission and Enrollment here at Jewish Theological Seminary. I'm excited about this for several reasons as an artist myself, but also just the work that's been going into launching this exciting program. So this feels like a big moment to actually share a lot of specifics with people, which I'm excited about. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But there will be time. I have a brief presentation. It'll probably take about 20-25 minutes of me talking at you. During that time, if you have questions or anything that you want to bring up, please feel free to share it in the chat. My colleague Aiden will be in the chat answering things as we go, but also saving questions. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. Because the group is so big, the way we're going to do this is Aiden is going to share questions with me from the chat. So whatever questions you do have, go ahead and type them into the chat and Aiden will be tracking as we go. And this is the first of many times that I will say this, but if we don't get to you, or if you are someone like me who needs to marinate a little bit on something before you really know what you don't know or what you want to know more about, you can always email us mfainfo@jtsa.edu. We're here to help and support however we can. So those are a little bit of the ground rules. And with that, I'm going to introduce my colleagues. Aiden, do you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. I am the Director of Administration for the Division of Lifelong and Professional Studies, and I'm really excited to be with you all, and so excited to see so many people on this call.
Thanks, Aiden. And now I'll throw it over to Dr. Lisa Springer, who is going to say a couple words about what this program is before we dive in.
Great. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for coming. I'm Lisa Springer. I'm the Dean of the Division of Lifelong and Professional Studies. And I'm saying that name in part because the MFA is housed in that division. And when you apply, you need to apply to the division. So we'll be saying that name mostly because it's where the MFA is housed. So I've been working on this MFA and developing it for a couple of years now. Working very closely with Jonathan Safran-Foer, who's our founding creative advisor. And we identified Edgar Carrot came on board as the director in February. So we've been working at breakneck speed and are so glad to be now at this moment here. So the question, why an MFA at JTS? So it's really our program. And as you can imagine, with MFA programs, they're very influenced by the vision of the director. And so I'll be, saying what Edgar would say, which is that Jewish storytelling there's just such a rich tradition of Jewish storytelling. And our program is inspired by Jewish storytelling. And as Edgar says, Jews wandering, traveling, having to form an identity, having to express what that identity is, have really leaned on stories to explain who we are. And now in our current world, it feels as if with so much fragmentation and so much movement and so much change, that storytelling has become really a survival skill that everybody needs. So our program is founded on that idea of the incredible impact that storytelling can have on our lives, and how important it is for all of us to own our stories. In terms of the program that we're creating, a few things that are going to be very important are for us to be a very warm community where we get to know each other really well and support each other. Another really important key component is kind of wild experimentation, the possibility of exploring in many, many different ways, as each person refines and perfects their particular story. And another unique thing about our program is that in addition to the work that we're creating, our focus is also on how we put those stories out into the world. And for those of you who know Edgar at all and his work, he often publishes his stories in his Substack. He at one point was telling me a story about how he had worked with a bakery to put stories into the challah that people bought that they could open on Shabbat, break open, and as they ate the challah, they would also read a story about someone else eating challah in a different place. Now, it turned out that project didn't work out because it turned out it was a choking hazard, but I still tell the story because I think it really reflects the many, many different ways that we can tell our stories and get them out there into the world. I'm going to pass it over to Sam, who's going to answer lots of questions, and maybe I'll be back to answer some specific questions towards the end of our time together.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I doubt that we're done with you just yet, but thanks for the overview. And so now I think it's time to talk a little bit about how we accomplish all of these things that we have set out to do with this degree. So to get into the weeds right away, I want to talk about how this low residency model works. The program takes place over 4 semesters. And each semester is made up of an in-person residency at the JTS campus in New York, which is about 10 days long each time. And then what is referred to as a semester project, but what is really 4 sections of working through a culminating large-scale piece of work. I'll talk a little bit more later about the kinds of work that we are serving in this program because it's quite broad. But whatever the equivalent of a novel-length manuscript would be in your area of creative practice, a full-length play or screenplay, a full-length manuscript for a graphic novel, whatever it might be, that is what you will be working on over the course of these 4 sections of semester project, culminating in a 5th residency, also on campus here at JTS, where pieces will be shared out. There will be professional development and industry engagement with these pieces, as well as just community support and things like that. So that's the rough structure of the program. It's 12 credits per semester over those 4 semesters, and you can enter in the fall or the spring. And I'll get into that when we talk about the application process as well. To drill down a little bit more, the structures of the residency are intensive. They are 10 days long, and they have 3 basic components. The first component is workshopping, so you'll be in workshop with other artists in the program, sharing work, giving feedback, learning that muscle, that essential muscle that artists need of giving and receiving productive feedback and supporting each other's work while also pushing each other to be the best possible storytellers you can be. There will be craft instruction, so you'll be taking classes in the elements of creating story, writing, and other sort of things that go into that from a craft perspective, and that'll be taught by members of our cadre of artistic advisors and things like that. And then the third component is learning about Jewish storytelling. So there's a Jewish studies academic component, members of the JTS faculty, world-renowned scholars in Jewish history, Jewish thought, and things like that will come and add an element of that conversation, that 5,000-year conversation around Jews as storytellers to the mix as you are growing and expanding and working. In addition to those three elements, there will also be a rotating menu of planned immersive experiences, whether it's a professional development focus, so maybe a roundtable with agents and managers, or visiting offsite to a professional podcast studio or publishing house, things like that, interacting with the industry in New York City directly, or other kinds of immersive experiences, going to see a play, sort of taking advantage of the hub of arts and culture that New York City is, to sort of keep you breathing and speaking and reading and writing in that language of what's going on now, in as up-to-date a way as possible. And then the semester projects, this is the bulk of your experience. This is the low residency part. Each semester after the residency will unfold over 3 or 4 remote check-ins with your mentor one-on-one at a pace that you will set ahead of time with your mentor. And those check-ins will be attached to goalposts that you set to complete your goal. So you will be sharing work with your mentor and receiving feedback and working towards next steps with each check-in. But your mentor will also be assigning other elements of your development in a low residency model. So that might be a reading list, that might be direction to visit certain museum exhibits, or things of that ilk, things that the mentor determines will serve your process in developing your project. As I mentioned, that's 3 or 4 check-ins over the course of a 12-week semester, and then rinse and repeat until we get to the 5th residency. And all of that is very flexible. You determine that schedule and those goalposts with your mentor to a certain degree. Obviously, you want to space them out enough to do work, and you have to have 3 or 4 in the semester. So there's only so many ways you can space that out, but you do work on that schedule with your mentor. So this is meant to, a certain degree, be able to fit into an already busy life. I mentioned our cadre of artistic advisors. This is the part that's the most living and breathing element of the program. The program has come into being already with some really exciting stewards. Jonathan Safran Flowers, Dr. Springer mentioned, is our founding creative advisor. Lisa and Jonathan worked together to really develop this idea and the sort of philosophical intention of the program. And Edgar Carrot is our director. So he'll be really steering the ship from a thematic standpoint and also from an administrative standpoint. And then this is just a sampling of the folks that we have engaged already in different ways. Not everyone on this page will be a mentor. Not everyone on this page will be a teacher during a residency, but everyone on this page has in some way, come into our orbit and agreed to give access to our students as part of their development. So you might be, visiting Ira Glass's podcast studio. I think Alex Edelman is going to work with students. So there's a Shalom Auslander has also agreed to work with students. So there is a spectrum. You'll also notice here that there is a spectrum of modalities. So we have, actors and filmmakers, we have a podcaster, we have stand-up comedians, we have journalists. Again, we'll dive a little bit more deeply into the interdisciplinary focus of the MFA, but the idea was to create a galaxy of teachers and mentors that could really speak to a broad swath of artists who identify with this mission of creating a space for Jewish storytelling. And with that, we'll transition to the application process. Things are a little truncated at the moment. Our priority deadline is this Thursday, but don't panic. We will continue to accept applications as space allows after Thursday. I will say right now, one of my mantras as an admissions professional is I always, always, always want your best work, not your earliest work. So don't feel like you have to suddenly go home and like bang out 25 pages of a novel just to be able to like get over the finish line. If you have specific things you want to work with us on in terms of a timeline, we are here to receive that email and work with you directly. But after that priority deadline, things will be on a rolling basis. There are 4 basic elements to the application, each one with its own little sort of list of requirements. Aside from the main body of the application, which will be basic information like your educational and biographical background, resume and work experience, and other sort of programmatic questions, you'll submit a creative portfolio, a statement of purpose, 2 letters of recommendation, and official transcripts from all of your previous academic endeavors. You are required to have a bachelor's degree to enroll in this program. So you either have already completed one or are on track to complete one by the time you would enroll in the program. So for this moment, we are looking at fall of 2025. So it's folks who are graduating with a BA by August of this year. And that would be true with each semester. After that, if you are interested in applying for spring entry, that's January of 2026, that application is actually not open yet. That application will open up on September 1st. So you'll be submitting with the 2026 application cycle. So right now we are at the tail end of the 2025 application cycle. So I know that there are some of you on this call who are interested in spring entry, which is great. My advice to you is spend the summer writing and come back in September. But we can talk more about that during the Q&A. Okay, so statement of purpose. There are prompts within the application that are a little bit more robust. You can also find the exact language of the prompts on our website. Aiden, if you want to share a link to the application site in the chat so people can take a look, that would be great. But the essential sort of gist of this statement of purpose are these 2 questions. Describe yourself as a storyteller and what are your goals for your time in the program? And I can speak as someone who obviously had a hand in creating this application, but also as someone who has been through the MFA grad school meat grinder himself. You want to be really specific, not just about what it is you are trying to accomplish as an artist, but why this particular program and this community, this institution is the place for you to achieve those goals. And you can be really practical about that. It's about elements of your work that you're interested in having the room to expand on. Maybe you need some time to write to sort of explore how to build a scene, or you want to work on dialogue. Maybe you want to try and explore and push yourself into a different genre or a different style of working. You really want to think about your essential why as a human, what drives you to be a storyteller. Lisa used the word survival. I think of us humans as storytelling animals. This is literally baked into our wiring as organic beings to tell stories and relate to one another. And so it comes from a place that's very deep. So, you do some reflecting and you think about where those stories might be coming from and how you want to orient them through this program. What is it you want to achieve? Do you want to publish a novel? Do you want to, be able to learn more about a specific kind of story, or it can really be anything. But I invite you to use this as an opportunity to do some specific self-reflection. There isn't a right answer for us here, right? We can tell when someone is trying to guess what we want to read. So it's really just better for you to take this for what it earnestly is, which is an opportunity to reflect on your work, your relationship to it, and its relationship to the world. We're really thinking about impact, the impact that artists can have on the communities that they are a part of, and the people that interact with their work. And so you want to be thinking about both sides of that equation, your relationship to your work and your work's relationship to the world around you. All right, and then the bulk of the application, the creative portfolio. I know it doesn't look like much here. You're like, oh, that's it, one sample of work. So again, on our website, there is a breakdown of different ways that one primary sample of work can be defined. So for novelists, I believe it's about 25 pages of prose, and that's for fiction and nonfiction. It's 8 to 12 pieces of poetry. I believe we're looking at about 20 pages of dramatic writing. It's really about identifying what your primary area of work is. So if you are experimenting with a lot of different things, but you think of yourself, your best foot forward is as a prose fiction writer, or you think of yourself primarily as a screenwriter or a playwright, that's where you want your primary sample of work to come from. You also might want to think about it as like the primary style of work that you would like to engage with in this program. We do welcome and encourage additional submissions outside of that one primary sample of work for two reasons. First is that, the more context we have for what is driving you, what you're interested in, how you are experimenting or how you are kind of working through problem solving as an artist, the better we're able to sort of make a decision about your place in this community and whether we can serve your goals, right? But more importantly, we're interested in interdisciplinary artistry and that has a practical element and a philosophical element. Philosophically, those are just the kinds of artists that we happen to be, and also the kinds of artists that we tend to work with, and all of that. It's just kind of what we see around us, but it's also the way that the industry has shifted. And I say the industry, I mean broadly the creative industries. It's no longer enough to just be great at one thing, right? As an artist, as a novelist, or as a playwright, or as a screenwriter, you have to be able to be flexible and be practical about how you engage your audiences using media and technology. You have to kind of be able to do it all. It's not enough to just write a great play. You also kind of have to have the skill set to direct and market it and produce it. Same thing goes with film. Being able to go around the traditional ladder of like manuscript, manager, agent, produced work or published work. Now there's more tools than there has ever been for artists to circumvent that structure, which is a double-edged sword, right? It's never been easier to take your work directly to people who need to engage with it, but that means that the zone is absolutely flooded. So there's a whole other skill set of being nimble, of being expansive, being flexible and creative, beyond the backbreaking work of just creating a good piece of storytelling. And that's what we want to encourage too. So if you are thinking about yourself at all in an expansive fashion, so maybe you're mostly a fiction writer, but you also dabble in songwriting, we want to see that. And our creative portfolio upload platform can accommodate both text and video time-based media, so recorded music or video. So if you do any kind of performative storytelling of any kind, you are welcome to submit that. I want to say something about self-curation. So there is an element also of like making sure that you are choosing what you are submitting with the intention of communicating something to us specifically. Just because we encourage expansive submission doesn't mean that we want everything you've ever done, right? This may seem obvious to folks, but I always like to just put it out there. You know, we don't know you, we don't know your work, and this is our first encounter, and you are in control of the story that we receive about your work, right? So that curation is as much a part of this as the work itself. Okay, great. And then lastly, the nitty gritty of the cost piece of this, that's the tuition and fees altogether for the program is $15,500 per semester. Tuition does tend to rise by about 1 to 3% each year, not each semester, but there's no planned increase at the moment for just because we're not at that point in the cycle yet. So this is the fee structure at this time. There are limited tuition fellowships available for applicants. Another reason why that priority deadline is there. I say limited, I mean limited. I'll talk about that in just a moment, but the consideration for those fellowships is automatic with the application process. So there's no additional thing that you need to do other than completing the FAFSA, which you can do at fafsa.gov for as long as that website still exists, hopefully for much longer, but submit the FAFSA. That will give us the sort of shape of your financial situation and allow us to really make sure we're allocating our resources equitably as well as on a merit basis. From there, if you receive a tuition fellowship, it'll be included in your letter of admission when you receive it. This is where I take my admissions hat off and just like, as someone who's been through this process, like I will say pay as little for art school as you possibly can. There are lots of really well-funded programs. There are some that will even pay for you to go there. This is not one of them. So if you are entering into this process, knowing at the outset that you are either not able to contribute anything to your education or your work in this program, and you are not willing to take loans, both of which is like totally valid. Education in general in America is grossly overpriced and inflated, and it's out of reach for even some of the wealthiest Americans. So like that's just kind of where we're at. So I respect that. But if that is where you are at in terms of not willing to take out loans or pay into the education, not able to, then this might not be the path for you. Just to be transparent, we don't have full tuition fellowships, and I like to be clear about that. And with that, I believe that is the sort of biggest bird's eye view that I can give of this whole thing. I'm happy to answer any and all questions that I can. I don't know what Aiden has managed to do in the meantime, but I think with that, we'll transition into Q&A. And thank you for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see some faces.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Sam. The first question, I got a lot of great questions, some of which I was able to answer or Lisa was able to answer, but some questions to pose to you, which is, or Lisa, if Lisa wants to answer, is who will be reading the applications?
It's a great question. So the committee is made up of faculty and administration, two of whom are here. So Aiden and Lisa will be reading applications along with our program director, Edgar Carrot, and our incoming associate director as well. So so theoretically, each application is read 3 to 4 times by separate people, and then we have a committee to ensure some mitigation of bias and also a holistic review. And these are qualitative things. They're not quantitative, right? There's no like mathematical equation that gets us to a good writing student. So we're all trying to assess from different angles, and then we come together and create the class from the group based on what we've read. So it's by committee, and then as we get through the cycle, especially at this late stage, we try to work that through as fast as we can. So we'll probably be meeting as a committee every week or every other week once things get rolling.
Great. Sorry, I'm trying to feed Sam questions and monitor the chat.
And
Lisa, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like not to say something about what you said, but I want to answer a question that's in the chat.
Okay.
Something about the website says that you'll be able to study with JTS Jewish Studies faculty. What does this mean? And will we be able to audit JTS classes? So I'd like to answer that question because this was very important in our creation of the program. So as Sam said, one component of the studying during the residencies is Jewish storytelling. So there will be a module on Jewish storytelling every residency. The first one will likely be Yiddish storytelling, and it will be taught by JTS faculty. So every residency, there will be a module on Jewish storytelling traditions taught by JTS faculty. In addition, any student in the MFA program can audit as many JTS classes as they would like without any additional costs. And in addition, if for one semester, if you're working on something that seems like you would really benefit from working with a JTS faculty member rather than one of our other faculty, you could opt to work for that semester with a historian at JTS or with anybody at JTS who you felt would really help you in telling the story that you've chosen to tell. I think those are the 3 ways that you have access to JTS faculty.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, we really want to make sure that you have access to this institution beyond just what we've built for you, because it is really an incredible resource as it's determined to serve you in your work. And just really quick, there's a simple, straightforward question from Amy in the chat about time frame. We are going to start releasing decisions the week of Memorial Day for folks who have submitted by the deadline to the best of our ability. And then it'll just be sort of on a bi-weekly basis rolling from there as decisions become ready. So I want to say that 12 to 14 business days from the time of submission at this point, but I can't really guarantee that because we don't yet know what volume is, and the committee doesn't get larger even if the list of applicants does. So we will be doing our best. If you do have specific reasons for needing an expedited decision, like you have to commit to another program or something like that, I'm happy to work with you if you want to follow up with us. I can't guarantee that we can meet every request, but we're definitely willing to listen. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to answer another question which came up earlier. Yeah, how large a cohort do we expect? We are limiting this first cohort to 16 students.
Hey, other questions?
I'm looking at the chat. We've got so many great questions. Did you already mention about the time frame for hearing back if you've already applied?
I did.
Great. You're ahead of me. Please keep sending me your questions.
So I see that Jill is asking, could you speak to resume versus CV since they often contain different quantities and types of information? What are you hoping to see learn from them? That is a great question. We don't have a specific expectation between the two. This is where we fall back into the curation category. You want to make sure that you're not creating or providing duplicating information. So, if there's information in your background that's provided elsewhere, either through your transcripts or through your personal statement or your work, that might be included in a CV, that might be a reason to go with a resume that's a little bit more trimmed down. We're scanning resumes and this goes for recommendation letters as well. Resumes and recommendation letters really provide us with context and raise potential red flags, right? We're scanning for your experience, the sort of circles that you run in, where you might have intersected with, the sort of the world of the arts, anything like that, any relevant experience, any interesting experience to draw on. But yeah, there's really no set thing that we're looking for. So if you feel the CV is the most sort of accurate and complete thing that contains information we need to do our job, then please submit it. And if not, resume is fine as well. You're not applying for a job, so you can be a little bit more kind of oversharey, if that makes any sense. I couldn't get to the word.
I'm getting a few questions. Maybe Lisa, you can speak to this about kind of the structure of the residency. There's a question about how the workshops will function. Is there an interdisciplinary focus? Do you envision that people will be paired with other genres in the workshop or mostly work with their own genre? There's also a question about a plan for teaching practicum or a pedagogy class. So maybe tackle some of that.
Sure. So in terms of the pedagogy class, I answered it in the chat, but things are moving so quickly, it's a little bit hard to see. There isn't a plan for a pedagogy class, but as I said earlier, any student in the MFA program is welcome to take any classes they would like at JTS. So the Davidson School of Education has many pedagogy classes, and you would be welcome to take those classes. And if you were intending to graduate with the MFA and to have teaching as part of your knowledge base, you could take those classes and you could then list that you had taken those classes. In terms of the other question, Aiden, was about the structure of the residency. So the residency will include, as Sam said, workshops, and in those workshops you will be with multi-genre students. So we are not going to separate students by genre because we're so open to so many genres, we're anticipating that you might be the only person in your particular genre in our program. And someone was asking earlier, will we have playwrights? And yes, we are hoping to have playwrights on our faculty. But if if someone comes who's doing a particular thing, like say a graphic novel, and we don't have a graphic novel faculty member, we will also be very flexible in reaching out and finding a particular mentor for one individual student. So we're not limited to the people who are on our list. We're going to be very expansive in finding the right fit for each person. But in the workshops, you will be with people doing lots of different genres. And our philosophy is that there are, some fundamentals of storytelling that apply to all the genres, and that we can all learn from each other in all of those disciplines. And then, yeah, go ahead, Sam, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, so I wanted to just add in that part of our admissions work is, we're not going to admit a student to a program that we can't deliver, right? So, aside from the question of fit and capacity that go along typically with like MFA review and things like that, like how good is your writing, how well do you fit with our vision and all of that, all those sort of X factors. If you are applying in a modality that we cannot deliver on, we will not put you in a position of being on the hook for this program. Do you know what I mean? So, if you are admitted in that sort of way, that's also a guarantee on our end to make this worthwhile experience. And the other thing, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, if you do decide to audit classes or take as electives classes at Davidson or the Keck's Graduate School of Jewish Studies and things like that, that does change the residency modality of the program, right? So like we have this very
Oh,
flexible low residency model, but if you enroll in a Davidson class, that class won't necessarily be flexible in the same way. A lot of those classes, even if the ones are online, they sometimes meet in a more traditional sort of week by week model. Is that correct?
yeah, yeah, many of them are online, and some of them are asynchronous.
Hmm.
So, but some of them do require being on Zoom at a specific time. So yes, you'd have to look at each class and see whether it was in person or online. And also, I would just caution you that, this program will be demanding, and you don't necessarily want to add on, many, many other classes. But you also, it is really important to us that people who come and get the MFA at JTS can take real advantage of the many things that JTS has to offer if you are interested in that.
Um, there are a couple of other questions I wanted to address. Someone asked about working while in the program. That is the intention of the low residency model. We want you to be able to have minimized disruption to your already sort of busy life, allowing for what Lisa just said, which is that this is rigorous. This is a commitment of time and energy and emotional sort of investment. So, it's something that requires you to make space for it, but the idea is that it is designed in a way that you don't have to quit your job to do it, or anything like that. So, there will be some special cases around that, that we'll be sort of working through, but that is the idea of the program, is that you can work while in the program. There was another question from David about performative modes of working that might require collaborators, and I'm wondering, Lisa, if you can maybe speak to what the thought
Yeah.
is around like collaborators and presentation of collaborative work or work that might require actors and musicians and things like that.
Yeah. So it's a really excellent question. So the question, just if everyone hasn't seen it, will there be production support to showcase performative, collaborative genres? So definitely when in speaking with Edgar, he's really, really interested in having people take full advantage of each other and opportunities and showcase work and do open mics and do spoken word, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to allow for a lot of collaboration. Will we have specific support for creating a production? No. So we are not going to have, actors and stage managers, et cetera. But if for, he does a lot of, recently he's been doing some work with a musician, and he's been in concerts, and the musician sings and then Edgar just invents stories as the musician is singing. Um, so and he also has done things where he'll have a dance troupe which will act out a story of his. So collaboration across genres and creating new forms of expressing our stories, I think he would be up for, and encouraging. So I hope that answers the question, but definitely we will not have, all the support to put on a specific play or something like that.
I want to address a question. There's a pair of questions that I see. One from Ariana, who's asking if they should indicate a specific advisor that they're inspired by or hope to work with, which is an interesting question. And what I would say is there's not a method by which you could like reserve somebody. We make all of those assignments in-house based on our own sort of internal process. However, I think it's a great way to orient your writing towards the specifics of this program. Our artistic advisors, the list of artists that have been put together already, and as it expands, speak to what it is we're trying to do. So if there's someone whose work inspires you, or someone who you admire, or someone who you would want to work with, that's a great way to kind of kick off the writing process for your personal statement, to think about why specifically this program might serve you, because that artist is involved with this program for potentially overlapping reasons, right? In terms of philosophy or approach, or sort of intention around their work. So I think that can be a really great way to begin the thought process, but there's no concrete way to reserve a mentor ahead of time. And then above that, from Adam, can you speak more about the additional submissions? Are they required or expected? And the quick answer is no. They are not required or expected. I would say that that option is there for those to whom it speaks specifically. So, if you heard me talk about that and you say like, oh, that's me. Like, for example, myself, my background is in playwriting. I have an MFA in playwriting, but I'm also a songwriter and a musician. So I'm already sort of straddling two modes of storytelling and sort of performance. That this would be a perfect sort of split for me, because I actually have another way of working. You know, for those of you who heard me talk about additional submissions and interdisciplinary work and thought, I wish I was that kind of artist. Well, good news. Part of the point of this program is that we leave space for the expansion of your work, right? We want you to come here and explore other ways of working if that is something that speaks to you as an interest, right? In addition to the work you're already doing, if you want to, learn a little bit more about dramatic writing or about screenwriting, you'll have those opportunities in different ways. But you don't need to already have work in that modality to submit. So the application really works as like a series of sliders on a mixing board. I'm already talking in music, so please, I'm sorry. It's better than sports, I think, as a series of metaphors. But uh, you know, if you are over mixed in one area, you'll want to compensate, right? So like, some folks are going to come through this process with lots of interdisciplinary work, and other folks will need to use their personal statement to really describe their intention around interdisciplinary work to kind of make up for that gap in the portfolio. So I guess in short, Adam, if you don't have like work in other disciplines, don't create it for the application, and don't worry about it not being there. Show up as your most authentic artistic self. It's there for the artist to whom it speaks. And this is an opportunity for you to think like, I never considered expanding or experimenting outside of my genre. And I find, this is the last sort of like woo-woo thing I'll say about this, even just thinking about what it would mean to tell stories in a different way forces you to think less about the mode and more about the story, right? So it's less about figuring out how to identify yourself as a novelist and thinking more about storytelling, for which, this idea is a novel, this idea might be a movie, this idea might be a poem, and really thinking about the content and where the story is coming from and what it's trying to say, rather than worrying about the box that it fits in, if that makes any sense. I warned you that it would be woo-woo.
So I wanted to answer a question Doug asked. Do you have an idea of who the faculty is and how many? I assume the advisors will not be teaching per se. So it's a very complicated question, and I'm going to try to do my best to answer it. If we put people into three categories, there are creative advisors, there are people who are going to be teaching, and there are people who are going to be mentoring. And on the list of creative advisors, there are some people who will be doing all three. So I'll give an example. Alex Edelman will be doing all three. He will be advising us, he will be teaching, and he will be mentoring. I'll give another example. Ira Glass, for example, will probably not be teaching, but might he mentor a student who wanted to work in podcasts, who he thought was a talented student? Yes. So he might mentor one student, if it's the right student at the right time. So some people will be doing all three, some people will be doing one, some people will be doing another. And we ultimately will have, probably, again, to go back to this idea of matching people with their genre, we will probably have a long list of mentors, of people who are going to work perhaps with only one student every 2 or 3 years, because of the particularity of what you're interested in. And we don't anticipate, a lot of programs that are low residency programs have the faculty come for all 10 days because of because we wanted greater flexibility and because we want to do multiple genres and because we are also getting people who may not be able to give us 10 days twice a year. We are going to have faculty coming for 2 days, for 3 days, and rotating in. And during that time, the one big advantage there is they won't all be there together and students will have a lot of access to them. That's our anticipation. That's our goal.
Sam, I'm wondering if you can answer a question that has been asked in this chat, but I've also gotten in our other conversations about the MFA, which is there are many people who are in different stages of their MFA journey. They might even be on this call thinking about it for the first time. And maybe they're coming from a world in which they haven't done a ton of creative writing, but have done a lot of writing in whatever job they have. How should those people apply now with that maybe non-creative writing? And if not, or separately that question, how can people really develop their voice so that they can become ready to apply? What recommendations would you have?
This is a great question. And there's no one correct way to answer it. So I'll do my best. I think if this is a master's level writing experience, and we will be evaluating the portfolios sort of roughly in relationship to each other, right? I mean, there's no way around that. We try to give each person their hermetically sealed review and sort of give a read on what it is. But eventually we're going to be talking about everybody in context with each other as a community and a cohort, right? So, we are looking at level of experience, but someone might have all the experience in the world and have not learned a single thing from it, right? So like it really is about the quality of the writing, the clarity of the voice, where we value emotional boldness, narrative boldness, all these things that anyone has access to, whether they've taken a single class in writing or they've been publishing for 20 years. So there's no concrete expectation of prior experience. However, if you are feeling like you are coming to this option as a way of getting your feet wet, dipping your toe in the water, seeing what it feels like to do some writing, this is going to be a really intense experience on that level. So I think there are half steps that you can take if you want to be in a class environment to kind of create accountability for yourself, give yourself a structure to start writing and start experimenting and getting some pages under your belt. So I encourage you to follow up with us if you want to talk about that, other options or some other ways that you can do that. But I would say if there's any hesitancy whatsoever, you may want to really think about where your work is in terms of not only being good, that doesn't really actually exist, but being ready to be pushed to this level, right? Because taking advantage of this kind of intensive requires you to be really familiar with yourself as a writer and also familiar with your practice, right? Because you're going to be churning and taking in feedback and experimenting and really kind of like pushing yourself past where you thought you could go previously. You're going to be expected to write and write and write. And you might be someone who's coming to this for the first time and be really excited by that. This is where your gut can be really helpful, right? If you've got a sinking feeling in your stomach because you're excited about like what that might mean, it makes you a little nervous. That might be a sign that like you might not seem ready or you might not have expected to be ready, but you've got like the sort of chutzpah to like go for it. And this is a practice of betting on yourself. On the other hand, if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, I just wanted to kind of see if I could churn out a short story and see if it was any good, on the other end of the spectrum, then that's also beautiful and amazing. This would not be the program for that, right? All of that is to say, if you're asking about ways that you can prepare for this, there's only one way to do it, and it's to write. There's a great book by Anne Lamott, who's a novelist and a memoirist, called Bird by Bird. It is like ABCs of writing, and I think about it every day, which is that, anyone you can think of, any novelist you admire, any one of the greats, anyone at all, you have to go and you have to sit down at the table with a blank page, right? And it's like the
I see
hardest
that
thing.
David is holding up a copy of it.
Oh my God, great, excellent. So, the point is there's no way around that part of this. And if you are feeling like you want to marinate a little bit, well, guess what? The good news is you may not be ready to apply for this program, but I just challenged you to go and write something, right? So like either way, you're going to get something out of this if you can kind of force yourself through that process. So there there is a minimal cost to taking the chance here. You know, sometimes it can be really instructive to find out if you have what it takes, even if you don't think so. That can be kind of its own practice. There's no right way. You know, you have to kind of trust your gut on this. There was a specific part of that question that was about like if they don't have a lot of creative writing, but they have a lot of like narrative, like, you know, professional writing and things like that. I'm going to say that that's not really something that you should submit. You know, we'll take it and we'll read it. We'll do our best. Like, you know, in the conversation about the sliders, right? Like if your portfolio is all professional writing, you know, legal briefs or, you know, white papers for like financial sort of work and things like that, great. You're really going to have to put a lot on that statement of purpose then. That statement of purpose is going to be doing a lot of work, potentially more work than it's capable of holding, but that's, you know, that's not for me to decide. You know, you may surprise me. If you don't have a body of work yet, you don't actually know what you need from a program like this, I would say. So like, you know, maybe take a smaller step, join a writers group, look at Gotham Workshop or, you know, there's a lot of different things. And now a lot of it's done over Zoom too. So it's a lot more flexible than it used to be. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But hopefully this has been helpful a little bit.
I want to answer the question about whether you need to be writing on Jewish themes, because I think that's an important one. And the answer is definitely not. The program is really open to people writing about any topics that are compelling to you, whatever those topics are. The program is taking place at JTS, and we are founded on being inspired by Jewish storytelling. And that's you have to believe that that's important, and I think otherwise really explore whatever themes are meaningful to you.
Thank you, Lisa.
There's another question in the chat that I feel like is good to answer, which is, are the fall and spring semesters considered separate cohorts?
Mhm.
We were actually just talking about that this afternoon. Yes, in terms of the enrollment process, but no in terms of the experience of the residency. Folks who come in January will just join the residency for that January with the folks who are already there in fall. So each residency becomes its own kind of mini experience, and the cohort just gets more and more expansive.
Mhm. Great questions, everybody. I'm really appreciating all the energy and the specificity of the questions.
I agree. Yeah, this has been great. We've covered like a lot of ground. We have
Yeah.
about 9 minutes left, so I just want to acknowledge that. And we'll probably be able to do one or two more. But yeah, big thank you for all of this. Aiden, is there another question we should address?
I have a question that maybe we can answer, or maybe we need to get back to you, which is, will students of the program be eligible for health insurance and under other JTS student benefits?
Say that again, Aiden. I'm sorry.
Will students be eligible for the health insurance and other JTS student benefits?
I believe so. There are some things that will be limited because you won't be technically in residence on campus. There are certain campus services that you won't be paying into and therefore won't have access to. But I believe as enrolled students, you would have access to the health insurance. But follow up with us by email, and I will check with our registrar about that.
And maybe I feel like you've touched on this throughout, but just to get it out there, there's been a lot of questions about how mentees are paired with mentors. Could you just talk about the factors there?
Yeah, so I think, obviously it depends on the student's interest and what they're particularly pursuing, and us finding mentors that match with that. We will be giving opportunities for students to express their interest in particular mentors. We will also have opportunities for mentors and mentees to meet with each other during the residency to get to know each other. Today I think I was talking with someone about maybe we'll create office hours during which people can, we won't do speed dating or anything, but during office hours during which people can just chat with the mentors and express their interest. And obviously we'll do, the best we can to match people with people who suit their genre, who work well with them. We anticipate that many people will work with different people every semester, but it will also be possible, if it's a good relationship, for you to work with the same person more than once and potentially even more than twice.
Thanks, Lisa.
Mhm.
Oh, this is a great question. Bale's asking if as screenwriters they can submit show Bibles, treatments, and breakdowns acceptable for the additional submissions. Here's what I'll say about that. So a show Bible, for example, takes an incredible amount of work on top of already developing a pilot, right? First 3 episodes and all of that. We'll absolutely accept it as additional submissions. I would say that a show Bible in and of itself can't be the primary work, which I know is not what you're asking. That's a great use of the additional submission. If you want to submit the script for a pilot and then the show Bible along with it, that's a really interesting way of using that structure for sure. Now I'm excited. I was already excited, but now I'm extra excited. And the other thing I'll add, just because I know that sometimes these sorts of things, like if you have a sizzle reel or if you have visuals, right? If you've had to pitch to producers and put together like mood sort of pitches, photographic elements and things like that, the platform can accommodate that. So give us the full pitch if you feel like it.
There's a question here about financial aid. Sam, maybe that you can answer. What percentage of tuition does the fellowship cover?
So we're working out the strategy here in the structure. There will be a range of percentages. That's why the FAFSA is really important. It really helps us understand like if a certain percentage fellowship can get us within range of meeting a gap in ability to pay for the program. But yeah, the fellowships will range from 15 to 40%. I can't really say at the moment like how many of each will go out. There will be folks who don't get a fellowship. There will be folks who do. I guess I just want to sort of get ahead of the curve here. And there was a question about how many applications we anticipate as well. So I'll kind of wrap all this up together. Our financial aid process is sort of separate and parallel to our consideration of fit and admission. Obviously the two are wrapped up together. We use the term merit-based, and so there is some element of this that is about like, using some of our funds to try and entice, merititious students, whatever that means. But really what this is about is trying to bring as many people into this program who belong here as possible. And for some people, money is going to be the factor. And for some people, it's going to be less so. And we are trying to understand how best to use our limited resources to bring those folks in. And so if you are admitted and you don't receive a fellowship, that's not because we like didn't really want to admit you. You know what I mean? We're only admitting people into this program that we feel will thrive here, want to be here. We want them to be here. And then the money portion is an additional thing that we try to do to create some level of access with the limited resources that we have. And there was a question about the number of applications. We have no idea at the moment. The interest has been honestly incredible since we launched the program a month ago. So we're anticipating having a pretty good number, especially if we're talking about bringing in 16 folks. But we are going to be admitting folks who are right fit. So, this is a chance to bet on yourself, regardless of what the selection rate might be.
Thanks, Sam. I wanted to answer the question, Johnny, that you asked if I have been working on writing a collection of short stories, but don't necessarily have enough done for it to be considered a body of work. So I just want to be clear, you don't need to hand in a body of work. If you've been working on a collection of stories and you have a story that you think is a good submission, please go ahead and send that in.
So
And again,
sorry, Lisa, just to cut you up there is like the page requirement. So
yes.
you don't have to have 8 stories done. As long as you can get to I think it's 18 to 25 pages of prose, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. You know, that's all that matters. We don't even have to know if it's like, no one's it may not be a finished novel manuscript. You might have like 2.5 stories that equal 25 pages. You know what I mean? That's really the only metric here for submitting. Anyway, sorry, Lisa, I just wanted to sort of clarify that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And then I just want to answer, I think someone was saying, Laura, you were saying if it doesn't have to be on Jewish topic, how does this program differ in mission from a typical MFA low residency program? So it doesn't have to be on Jewish topics, but we will have far more people writing on Jewish topics than in another MFA, in a non-Jewish MFA program, obviously. But many Jewish writers who write on Jewish topics, write 4 books on Jewish topics and 4 books not on Jewish topics. So it's not limited, but it certainly will be much more Jewish focused than other MFA programs.
I think there's also something to be said for the sort of collective energy of getting a bunch of Jews together to write stories. And I do want to be clear that there's no actual requirement for being Jewish to be in this program, just like there's no requirement for telling a story about Judaism or about something Jewish, to be in this program. But I think that it's such a strong cultural impulse, such a robust sort of experience, and there's so much to talk about and so much to take from. The idea is that even just being in proximity to the idea of Jewish storytelling as a thing is going to inform your work, even if you're writing a space opera. That's kind of the reason to be here versus another MFA program, aside from the flexibility of it all and the specific artists. This is for writers who are interested in seeing how that culture, that flavor, that kind of conversation about what storytelling is to a group of people or to a movement or whatever it is for you, informs your work, regardless of whether you could point to something in your work and say that's the Jewish part. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very well said, Sam.
So why don't we end there? And just as a reminder, we are, phone lines are open. By phone lines, I mean our email during normal office hours, but we are so ready to answer more of your questions. mfainfo@jtsa.edu, and I just posted the application link. And we're so looking forward to reading your writing and to hopefully working with many of you.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate what Sam said. I've been so excited about this program for the past 2 years, and to be at this point and to see potential future students is incredibly exciting, and to think about starting to create our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you for spending time with us, everyone. Have a great night wherever you are in the world, and we are excited to see your work.